Hello, my fellow YouTubers and health conscious people around the world. My name is Srinivas. I'm an IT professional and have a high passion for health and nutrition. Today, I'm going to talk about my favorite topic, fat metabolism. And I'm going to talk more about LDL cholesterol and the myths around it, how they are demonized, and how they are very healthy for us. But before I get into the more details, a word of disclaimer from me. The information I'll be sharing is strictly general information purpose only, and don't use this as a medical advice. As a result, there is no patient-doctor relationship is shared. Um, so our body is the best doctor and the food is the best medicine. I strongly believe in this, meaning we need to pay attention and be aware of how we feel after we eat instead of blindly eating and, not knowing how you feel about it because that matters a lot. Let's say if you eat and you feel energetic and active and more active, that means the food that you have eaten has got good nutrition and you're not hungry for the next 3 to 4 or 5 hours. But if you eat a meal, for example, high carb meal, most of them you feel sleepy. That means your body is mostly digesting the food and it's not giving you the energy that you need after you eat. And sometimes with a high carb diet, you feel hungry immediately after 2 hours because of high insulin. So all these things you need to pay attention because most of the doctors have no knowledge or on nutrition or food. When you go to visit doctors and they know to give you a medication for everything, but they don't check what kind of food you're eating, what is your diet look like, what is your lifestyle look like, because they've been programmed to give you medication, otherwise they lose license. Um, and that medication may not solve the problem, but it will cause 100 other issues. For example, we all know for cholesterol, high cholesterol, most of the physicians recommend statins, but it is proven that statin causes may reduce cholesterol, but which is not good. I mean, reduction of cholesterol is not really good. Um, but it caused a lot of other issues like mental issues, Alzheimer's, cognizant memory loss, whatnot, because it is reducing cholesterol. Cholesterol is one of the important nutrition that our brain cells need, and statins is actually reducing. I don't know if the doctors, physicians knows about it or not, but this is one of the blunders that physicians are doing, giving statins to people with reasonably high cholesterol, which we'll talk more about it. So net net, onus is on us to learn and educate ourselves to become more smart about our own body. We only have one body to live, and and we have to take care of it. We can't put all kinds of junk in that body. We are living in an energy abundant world where we find food everywhere. Now, paying attention to what we eat matters a lot. Food industry will try to make market and make everything appetizing for their benefits, and they don't care about our health nor the doctors. So, history of dietary fat consumptions. Humans have been eating more carbohydrates and seed oils in the last 50 to 100 years. Um, and if you look at it, if you correlate how it has shaped our body and our health, if in the past, before 60 years ago, most of the, if you look at the body, they're lean and, healthy. But in the last 50 to 60 years, that has transformed our health drastically in a very bad way. With we have obesity, a lot of obesity across everywhere, heart diseases, insulin resistance, you name it. So, question is, the are carbs, high heating of carbs and seed oils is helping us or not, right? How did the coronary heart disease change over a period of time? It only increased. So what can we attribute this to, right? We'll know more. And in the past, we've been eating lard, tallow, ghee, butter. These are all saturated fats. And in the last 50 years, that has changed drastically for various purposes, mainly food industry like Crisco. started manufacturing artificial oils from the seeds, right? It is highly hydrogenated, highly inflamed when it goes in our body. And those are omega 6 polyunsaturated fats, which are really bad for us. In limited quantity, it's okay, but in high quantity, it is really bad. Another thing is, if you ask anybody what is the root cause of heart attacks, everybody will say without a doubt cholesterol. So that brings to this topic how fat and cholesterol has been demonized for almost 50 years, even till date, because of this one man, Ansel Keys. Ansel Keys is a physiologist in the University of Minnesota. He's a nutritionist, very influential guy. There was 7 countries study is one of the major study. He started to investigate diet and lifestyle along with the other risk factors for cardiovascular disease. So in fact, he had data from 24 countries, but he only picked 7 countries because that suits his diet heart hypothesis theory and presented it, proved that saturated fat caused the cardiovascular diseases without much scientific reason behind it. Later on, randomized trials were conducted. There were control groups, intervention group. Control groups are given saturated fats. Intervention group are given polyunsaturated fat. Again, the data was manipulated and he presented in such a way that the saturated fat was causing heart attacks. In fact, the polyunsaturated fat was causing. Later on, they did find this data, and then that's how the information came out to be true that saturated fat is not causing the cardiovascular diseases. Um, I think the demonization started from there on, starting in 1950s. His research is one of the prime contributor to the food pyramid recommendation that we see today. That is high carbs, medium proteins, and low fat. And if you see from that time onwards, everybody started gaining, obesity and all kinds of um, inflammation, insulin resistance started happening. We're seeing it. Now, before I go deep into it, let's define what is fat. Fat is one of the 3 macronutrients that we consume, and it not only provides energy, but it also provides a lot of functions across our body. Like cholesterol is used to, because fat has a triglycerides, phospholipids, and cholesterol, which we'll talk more about it. So fat not only provides energy, but also gives you a lot of what do you call raw materials to build the body structure, right? Um, it is a precursor for all the hormones like testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, glucagon. All the hormones are made of part of fats, type of fats called cholesterol. It is a long-term source of energy, like compared to glucagon, which is stored form of glucose, which is a short-term, whereas a long-term source of energy is fats, because storing energy in fat form is more efficient. It's very light, whereas glucagon is very heavy because it attaches to the water molecule and increases the weight. So henceforth, our body is so smart, it stores the energy in the form of fat as much as possible. So there are different types of fat: saturated fat, unsaturated fat. Unsaturated fats are further divided into poly and mono unsaturated fats. Polyunsaturated fats are mostly divided into, again, omega 3s and omega 6s. These are essential fatty acids: ALA, EPA, DHA. Um, Alpha linoleic acid, eicosapentaenoic acid, and docosahexaenoic acid. These are all omega-3 fatty acids, mostly found in the fish and chia seeds, whatnot. Omega-6, these are linoleic acids. These are mostly in the vegetable seed oils. High consumption is not good, but limited consumption is okay. And then saturated fats. Saturated fats are mostly source of the saturated fat is all animal fats, such as lard, butter, ghee, whatnot. These are actually healthy fats. Our body needs these saturated fats as well. When it stores in the cell membrane, it stores in the oleic form, right? Oleic form is the fundamental structure of the cell members. but unfortunately, it is demonized. Trans fats is the fats that is when all these unsaturated fats have a kink in it on the molecules, carbon molecules. There's a double bonds. The more double bonds you have on the carbon molecules, the more inflamed it more quickly it gets inflamed, whereas saturated fat doesn't have any double bonds. That's why you see most of the saturated fats are solid in a room temperature. You take lard, ghee, butter, these are solid because they have less double bonds, whereas monounsaturated, polyunsaturated have double bonds. As a result, they are liquid in form. And when you cook it at a high temperature, they become very inflamed, and you eat that is where the inflammation starts in your body. So essential fats we discussed earlier, omega-3, eicosapentaenoic acid, and then DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, and alpha-linoleic acid, ALA. These are essential because your body doesn't make these fats, and as a result, you have to consume this exogenously. Uh, so is the case with omega-6 fatty acids. So let's talk about what are fats. Fats are not just the energy. Fat also has cholesterol, phospholipids. These are actually building blocks of our cells. Like every part in our body is made up of cells. Like, you have skin cells, you have liver cells, you have heart cells, you have kidney cells. These have a different functions, but fundamentally they all use the cholesterol and phospholipids to form the structure. And triglycerides is an energy form that we consume, we burn and gain energy, right? And cholesterol has other importance to it. Besides cell structure, it also is a precursor to almost all the hormones in your body. Without hormones, you cannot function. Our body doesn't function. But every hormone is derived from cholesterol, right? In its nascent form, cholesterol actually transforms to either cortisol, glucagon, testosterone, estradiol, estrogen, whatnot, right? So the fats come in a different form, either through when you eat, that is basically the digestive form of fat, and fat is stored in the adipose tissue in your fat cells, and also it is synthesized, and our body generates fat through um, de novo lipogenesis, right? Excess energy like glucose is converted after it stores glycogen in the liver and muscles. It converts to fat, and that actually is not a healthy fat. That is very atherogenic, and we'll talk more about it. So yeah, the diagram here, as you can see, as you eat, our salivary lipase actually breaks the fatty acids, fat molecules into small, and then we further digest. Majority of digestion happens in the small intestine, and then it actually most of the fatty acids, triglycerides, cholesterol and phospholipids are actually combined into a chylomicron. Chylomicron is a lipid transporter. Lipid is nothing but fat. So this chylomicron is a transporter, which is a fatty molecule. As you know, fats doesn't dissolve in water. So in the blood, blood is aqueous, and these lipid molecules are fat, so they are bubbles and they don't dissolve. So you need some kind of transporter. So there is a ApoB. These are basically protein molecules that are attached to these chylomicrons, these transporters, that actually makes these molecules move in the blood in the aqueous form. So this is just a brief discussion, brief explanation here. The chylomicron consolidates all these fatty lipids and transports into lymph. In the lymph, because of ApoB48, which is a protein molecule attached to the chylomicron, it allows the protein molecule to stream into the blood. From the lymph, it jumps into the blood, and then so their HDL is, which we'll talk more about it. but I want to explain a little bit here. From there onwards, the adipose tissue consumes the triglycerides from the chylomicrons. As you can see, from muscles and adipose tissue consumes the fatty acids, triglycerides that is in the chylomicron. And the remaining chylomicron, which is called chylomicron remnant, is transported to liver because these remnants have ApoE molecule, which is a protein molecule. Liver has a receptor to it, so it will receive these chylomicron receptors, and liver actually recycles the content of the chylomicron remnants, which we'll talk more about it. So fat metabolism. Um, don't worry about it. This is very complex. Our body is very complex and is very smart how it leverages all our nutrients and to its benefits of in generating energy and the structure, giving structure to our body. So what you see at fundamentally here is a liver, adipose tissue, muscle, because this is where mostly the fat is oxidized. Basically, when I say oxidized, means taking the fatty acids and generating the energy from it is called fatty oxidation. And a fat synthesis means generating, the fats or cholesterol, whatnot, right? Synthesis means making, oxidation is breaking. So in the liver, and you have liver mitochondria, right? There is a cytoplasm which is outside the cell membrane. Mitochondria is where is the energy. It is the energy of the cell, right? So the orange path indicates the fatty acid oxidation, that is taking the fats from your food or from your adipose tissue, generating the energy in terms of ATP. That's what you see in a green TCA cycle. You get energy. I'm oversimplifying this because I don't want to go through all this. It's very complicated and it needs a lot of time. And then adipose tissue also uses, obviously, the mitochondria also use a different energy, glucose and fatty acids. These are two different forms of energy where it can use it and generate energy. Amino acids can be also used to generate energy, but it's used only when there is a lack of glucose. Body will tap into amino acids and fatty acids to generate glucose. Body has a different ways to generate glucose and create fats, right? From the glucose, it can make fat. From the amino acids, fatty acids, it can generate glucose. So these are all different mechanisms body has to, depending on, if you're fasting or fed state, the body will adapt to it, to these conditions because of all these alternative paths it has. So lipid or nutrition transportation. When I say lipid is a fat, and it's a nutrition in a way, right? How does the body actually transport the nutrition that we just ate, digested in the small intestine, goes to different parts of the body? The main orchestrator of that is the liver. Liver is the fundamentally a orchestrator that actually takes the nutrition from what you have eaten and pushes it to all the tissues and cells that consumes protein, fats, and whatnot. But it uses a different. So let's talk about dietary fat. Dietary fat is coming from the chylomicron, which we talked about. It is a lipid transporter, and dietary sugars, because this is a fat generated by the liver with the excess of glucose. That is a dietary sugar, right? And then free fatty acids from the adipose tissue. Your body has a mechanism to break the fats from your adipose tissue and create a free fatty acids, and then generate energy. Because this happens when you're fasting, when you're not eating. Body has a mechanism to break the adipose tissue and take the free fatty acids and generate glucose and generate energy for the body. Um, so how does it do it, right? It uses different lipid transporters. There are lipid transporters. CM is chylomicron, VLDL, LDL, ILDL, LDL, HDL. These are all lipid transporters. Um, um, and then HDL is typically, all these are generated by HDL is generated by small intestine and liver, and the other lipid transporters are mostly generated by liver. Um, and whereas HDL can be generated by the liver as well as small intestine. Um, and these lipid transporters, as I mentioned, these are fats, and there's fat globules, and which are doesn't get dissolved in the water, aqueous form in the blood. As a result, they need apolipoproteins, right? Apolipoproteins are shown below: ApoB100, ApoC, ApoE, ApoB48, ApoA. So ApoB100, B48 are the mostly used for, B48 is used for chylomicron transport from lymph to the bloodstream. B100 is mainly used to deliver nutrition to the tissues of body, right? All the VLDL, LDL, ILDL, they have a B100 apoprotein attached to those lipid transporters. That indicates that, hey, this transporter has a nutrition and for your consumption, right? Same thing with the B48. It has, but since it is coming from the intestine, it has a different apoprotein on it. And then there is apoprotein A, which is a marker used to convert nascent HDL to mature HDL. This mature HDL has a ApoC and ApoE. What ApoC is basically, it is allowing your tissues to, using a um, lipoprotein lipase, which is a hormone, it breaks the triglycerides into fats. And that's why these proteins, these lipoproteins use this ApoC to push the energy into the adipose tissue. Whereas ApoE is a protein molecule attached to the liver, and that's how liver knows to consume that protein for recycling. So more to talk about it. So here is a transportation, how the nutrition transports to the tissues. Liver actually exports nutrition to the organs of all our body through apolipoprotein transporters, which we talked about, VLDL. What is VLDL? VLDL is a very low density lipoprotein. IDL is an intermediate density lipoprotein. LDL is a low density lipoprotein. Um, they are low because they are fluffy, they're big, but they have low density because they have full of fat in it. VLDL has a high fat in it. LDL has a high cholesterol in it. And so, what does these lipoprotein transporters contain? They all contain dietary fat from chylomicron remnants, because whatever the fat that was remaining after it pushed into the adipose tissue, it is recycled through the liver. So, liver takes this dietary fat from the chylomicron, and then liver also synthesize fatty acids, adipose tissue free fatty acids, cholesterol synthesized by liver, because liver makes cholesterol as well, CoQ10, fat soluble vitamins. These are all packaged in this VLDL, very large density, very low density lipoprotein. This is how initially it creates this VLDL and puts these nutrition in it and transports to in our blood, right? So that's what you see, the VLDL. But before that, let me talk about chylomicrons deliver dietary cholesterol to peripheral tissue from the gastrointestinal. Low density lipoprotein LDLs delivers cholesterol to peripheral tissues, and high density lipoprotein, basically it is used to recycle cholesterol, excess cholesterol from all your tissues. HDL collects it and brings it back to the liver. Very low density lipo VLDL delivers free fatty acids to the peripheral tissue. Um, so if I make it if I can simplify this, VLDL is highly rich in um, triglycerides, fats, and as it deposits this fat into the tissues, it loses that triglycerides concentration and becomes ILDL. And the ILDL is actually returned back to the liver and then converts to LDL. It's the same molecule, but as nutrition is coming out of it, becomes small, right? VLDL is bigger one, and IDL is a smaller one, intermediate, and then low density lipoprotein is even smaller. But it is rich in cholesterol because VLDL already deployed all the triglycerides into the tissues. Now it is depleted with the triglycerides. It has high cholesterol in the LDL. So this cholesterol is now goes into all the tissues in our body, pushing cholesterol, phospholipids, vitamins, proteins, whatnot. Once it delivers to the tissues and HDL, it comes back to the liver because liver has a receptors, LDL receptors, which is ApoE. That is the indicator that liver can consume that. So this empty LDL comes back, and then liver uses that to recycle. HDL is interesting. HDL is basically, it is actually generated by small intestine and liver. And HDL, they call it healthy because it is bringing back cholesterol back to the liver, because it is used in the reverse cholesterol transport. It collects extra cholesterol from all our body organs and brings it back to the liver, which is good, because you don't want these lipid molecules hanging around in our blood for a long time, it causes atherosclerosis and inflammation. So that's why high amount of LDL is always important, because it is doing a cleanup job. Whereas LDL, it is blamed or it is demonized because it is pushing the nutrition to the cells, but in fact, it is doing a good job in pushing the nutrition to all our tissues, which is needed. And we'll talk more about why that is, and I'll debunk the myth of high LDL and cholesterol. Liver also uses excess cholesterol, to create bile acids. Bile salts are used to break the fats in small intestine, and that's why the cholesterol is very important, because liver regulates the uh, generation of cholesterol, um, because body makes cholesterol if you don't eat fatty food, because body has a mechanism to generate cholesterol. About 3 grams or 3000 milligrams of cholesterol body generates every day, because it thinks our body needs these cholesterol for all the cells. um, if we if we consume cholesterol in our food, body will not make cholesterol on its own. It will consume the dietary cholesterol and pushes that to the cells. So, and also another important thing is, brain doesn't depend on liver cholesterol. Brain makes its own cholesterol. Some of the our body organs, they make their own cholesterol. An example is a brain, because cholesterol is so important in the neuron functions in the brain. For brain, nerve to nerve communication, cholesterol is used. Um, so let's talk about chylomicron. We just talked a little bit about it. It is one of the biggest, larger lipid molecule. It contains proteins, phospholipids, triglycerides, and cholesterol esters, cholesterols, right? It is basically generated in the lymph using ApoB48. It got pushed into the bloodstream, and from the bloodstream, the tissues get the energy through triglycerides and free fatty acids, through lipoprotein lipase, which is a hormone that actually breaks the triglycerides into free fatty acids. And free fatty acids is actually a lipid molecule. Reverse cholesterol transport. This is very important because HDL, we say HDL is very important and very healthy. Having HDLs is very important because it is full of protein. HDL is full of protein, proteins such as ApoC, ApoE. It actually donates these to all the different lipid molecules like VLDL, IDL, LDL, because for them to function properly, for proper recyclation, these protein molecules are very important. HDL has a high protein content in it. Besides, it collects the remaining cholesterol from all the tissues and transports it back to the liver. VLDL, we talked about. Liver generates the VLDL molecule, very low density lipoprotein. It has a protein called ApoB100 that is an indicator. This this molecule is going to push the energy to the cells, right? Um, and then it also contains ApoC2 and ApoE, and it actually VLDL gets this from HDL, and the ApoC is used to push the energy into the tissue um, um, through the lipoprotein lipase enzyme. And ApoE is used to return the VLDL molecule back to the liver because liver has a receptor and it uses this ApoE marker to receive it. So HDL that way plays a very important role in transporting these proteins between all these lipid molecules. Uh, LDL, low density lipoprotein, Um, compared to VLDL, VLDL stays in our blood for maybe 6 to 10 hours. It is a short term, whereas LDL can last for 3 to 5 days. That's why when you do the blood test, you typically see LDL markers. VLDL is very transient, but VLDL is directly related to triglycerides. If you see the content of the VLDL, it's 90% is triglycerides. And then as it deposits that fatty acids into the tissue, it is depleted of triglycerides. What is left is a cholesterol, and that becomes LDL. So LDL has a high cholesterol, and cholesterol is so important for all parts of the body. All the peripheral tissue receives the cholesterol through the LDL molecule. Like as you can see, the kidneys, on top of that, cortisol hormone, adrenaline gland gets the cholesterol from the VLDL, and testes and ovaries receives this cholesterol to make testosterone, estrogen hormones, and all that. Our brain makes cholesterol because brain uses neurons to transmit signals and for cognizance, and cholesterol is very important. HDL, I talked a little bit about high density lipoprotein. It is high density because it is collecting all the cholesterol molecule remaining from all the cells and brings it back to the liver. Besides, it has a high protein concentration. But remember that ApoC, ApoE, HDL has a rich content of that because it shares that with the other lipid transporters. So, in summary, this is the composition. Chylomicron has high triglycerides, so is VLDL. LDL has a high triglycerides cholesterol concentration, and HDL has a high protein concentration, right? And the HDL is secreted in the liver as well as small intestine, and these ApoB particles such as VLDL, IDL, LDL is all secreted in liver, and chylomicron is secreted in small intestine. So let's talk about oxidation. We talked about cholesterol in a very bad form, in very bad connotation in all our conversation, but it is not cholesterol. It is actually carbs. So let's see how. Cholesterol oxidation, inflammation caused by sugars. How? So when you eat, liquid sugars and these candies and these carbohydrates, bread with, this burger, um, basically they all have translates to sugar in our body. High sugar creates high insulin, elevated insulin in our body, elevated hepatic. So that excess insulin, high insulin causes it's a storage hormone. Insulin is a storage hormone. Any energy you have, it gets stored. It doesn't get used like to burn, generate energy, right? So as a result, your liver generates hepatic lipids. Excess glucose is converted into fats, right? Now the fat is getting, we talked about lipid transporters through the VLDL and LDL. So as these lipid transport deposits these energy into different tissues, they become small, right? These lipids become small, dense LDL. So during the process, what happens is the high sugar intake uptake also elevates your free radicals, like you know, um, these are called reactive oxidative species, ROS. they are triggered by high sugary food, right? If you eat high carb food, most of the time excess sugar increases your reactive species in our body, and that actually oxidizes. When I say oxidizes, it damages the small LDLs, right? Small LDL particles. When I say it's damaged, these apoprotein marker changes. As a result, liver won't be able to pick it up for recycling, so they end up circling in the blood all the time, which is very dangerous. And sometimes, since it is very small, in your arterial walls that I am showing you in here in the right side, there is endothelial cells, there is a smooth muscle. It's also called intima and then media. So in the intima, which is the arterial wall, um, there is a glycocalyx material, and it is very thin, very transparent, and with the high sugar in the blood, that gets depleted, and as a result, the small dense LDL enters into the intima. Between the media and intima, they goes into it goes in there, the oxidized LDL. That's where it gets damaged with the ROS, reactive oxidative species, right? Once it gets damaged, that's when the inflammation starts happening. So as you can see, it's cholesterol is trying to help, you know, recover, repair the endothelial cells. During the process, it sacrifices itself, right? It's like when you see fire, you always see fire engine, and it's not because firefighters are causing the fire there. They came just to rescue it. Same thing with LDL. It is coming here to rescue the damage that was created in arterial wall. During the process, it sacrifices itself. So here is the mechanism of atherosclerosis. Chronic damage to endothelial cells, which is the lining of the arterial walls, um, allows LDL, so the small LDL, into extracellular matrix deep into the blood vessels lining. If these free radicals are present, right, they're present because of sugar molecules, high sugar in your body. LDL is oxidized. It becomes LDL oxidized LDL. And what happens with the oxidized LDL is every time your body has some kind of inflammation, the macrophages, which is white blood cells, they follow the inflammation because it is a protective form, right? The body is trying to protect you. So macrophages follows the oxidized LDL, it gobbles them, becomes foam cells. These foam cells is what they increase so much, and it ruptures it comes out of the vessels and forms a blood clot and causes fibrosis and thrombosis. That is the start of atherosclerosis in your arterial walls and stops the blood, and you get heart attack. So gist of it is, it's the sugar, high sugar, is causing the atherosclerosis, not cholesterol. Um, Here I'm showing the glycocalyx, which is a very thin layer on the arterial wall. This glycocalyx get damaged. The arterial layer on intima has a very thin layer called glycocalyx. Glycocalyx get damaged with glycation caused by high serum glucose. Also, high triglycerides cause blood to be very sticky and causes arterial atherosclerosis. So high carb sugar diet is the root of the cardiovascular disease and not cholesterol. So why? Because high carb increases high insulin. High insulin increases, the storage form of energy, and as a result, your HDL decreases, your LDL decreases as well. LDL decrease of LDL is means lack of nutrition to the cells, and with the ROS, which is reactive oxygen species, the small LDL gets damaged and causes atherosclerosis. So fundamental gist here is the high sugar, high carb diet is the root of the issues, not the high cholesterol. Um, I'm going to skip here. Excess cholesterol elimination and oxidation. As I mentioned, body has a mechanism ways to regulate the um, cholesterol. Um, if you are not eating fatty food, body can make cholesterol. But if you're eating fatty food, body will stop making cholesterol, use the digestive dietary cholesterol. So cholesterol is such an important to our body and its functionality. Excess cholesterol is converted into bile, and then bile salts are used to, emulsify fatty acids in the small intestine. Um, and then oxidation happens as I explained earlier because of the reactive oxygen species, and they become macrophages and foam cells. As a result, they damage the arterial walls. So LDL cholesterol. Now, LDL cholesterol is good or bad? Is it an arsonist or firefighter? I would say it is a firefighter because of all the function it is doing. There is no function that LDL is doing that is causing atherosclerosis. So let's talk about LDL structure. So it has got phospholipids, cholesterol, proteins, and triglycerides, right? And then top of that, there's ApoB 100 that is an indicator that it is going to transfer the nutrition to the cells. It is in um, host defense mechanism. LDL is a host defense mechanism. What that means is it is an antioxidant. If there is a bacteria virus infects, it sacrifices, LDL sacrifices, it takes that and kinds of neutralizes the bacteria and virus. That's how the LDL is used. That's how important the LDL is. It is used for cell repair, neurotransmitter signaling in the brain, and it is a precursor for your all your hormones, testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, you name it, serotonin, dopamine. All these hormones are generated. The backbone for all that is cholesterol, and to the point that vitamin D, when you go in the sun, based on the sunlight, there's a cholesterol underneath your skin. With the sunlight, that cholesterol becomes vitamin D. So your high vitamin D means high cholesterol. High cholesterol in your body means high vitamin D. So that's how important the cholesterol is for us. So the end, all cholesterol is good. Cholesterol is a waxy substance that plays an essential role, which I mentioned earlier. It is used in the cell membrane formation, hormone production, in digestion because bile acids are a byproduct of cholesterol. Immune function, I just mentioned, LDL is a host defense mechanism. It's an antioxidant activity. It is heavily used in the brain for brain functionality and cognitive functions. 80% of cholesterol is in your body is made by your liver, and if you eat, your liver doesn't make it. It'll use the dietary cholesterol as much as possible, and 25% of cholesterol in your body is found in our brain, and it is used to produce cell membranes, hormones, vitamin D, bile acids, and more. Low levels of cholesterol has linked to, look at this, Alzheimer's, strokes, depression, violent behavior, memory loss, suicidal. So now think about it. Is cholesterol a good cholesterol or bad? So the context of LDL matters more than anything, meaning if a person has um, atherosclerosis or reactive oxygen species, that causes the LDL to get damaged. And then it is mainly because of high sugar, high insulin, high triglycerides, high blood pressure, and insulin resistance. These are the um, these are the main areas where your body is unhealthy, and having LDL is not having high LDL is actually healthy, but the high sugar is what causing all these symptoms in your bodies. So key markers to check if you're diabetic, insulin, or coronary heart disease victim is check in your blood test. You can check triglycerides to HDL ratio. Triglycerides should be low, as low as possible, because the low triglycerides means low consumption of carbohydrates. Total cholesterol, as I said, cholesterol, high cholesterol is good. It is proven that people who die of heart attacks have low cholesterol. Let me repeat that. People who die of heart attacks have low cholesterol. They when the physician checks the body, there will be a cholesterol, but the cholesterol is there to protect. It's not the root of the issue. The root of the issue is carbohydrates that cause the damage of that LDL. You can actually check HOMA-IR. HOMA-IR is basically fasting insulin and fasting glucose divided by 4 or 5, and should be less than 1 of 5. So let's say 1.5. Your fasting insulin is 2 and fasting glucose is 100. So 2 times 100, 200 divided 4 or 5, which is much less than 1.5. So this is how you can measure if you're insulin resistant or not. Also, another lipid test I would highly recommend is LP little a. This is the more appropriate way to check if you're insulin resistant or not. It should be less than 30 milligrams per deciliter. All right, folks, that's it. Thank you for watching my show, and I hope you enjoyed, learned about it, learned about cholesterol and how fat metabolism happens. I'm looking forward to present ketone synthesis, how ketone is so useful for our body in my next video. Thank you so much.